Mike, are you about ready? Ready, Mike?
Channing.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's get the party started.
All right, let's call the June 11th, 2020 development petition to order. Starting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone go back to your grade school days. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to
and
the
to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation.
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
with liberty
indivisible,
and
and
justice.
justice for all.
Okay, our first order of business is I need a motion to table case number 5, Z20-029, 1400 Bethel Road. Motion?
Maria moved with her hand.
Okay, unmute us so we can all chime in. In favor of tabling this case number 5 as requested, say aye.
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 Okay, that case is now tabled. Now we'll go to the agenda, case number 1, Z20-007, 2469 Stelzer Road.
The 3.97 acre site consists of one parcel developed with 2 office buildings, split zoned in the LC4 Limited Commercial and CPD Commercial Plan Development Districts, with a portion of the parcel developed with a parking lot in the R1 Residential District. The requested CPD district would establish a unified zoning district for the existing development, legitimize the northern parking lot, which was developed without approval, and accommodate a future lot split. North and west of the site is a multi-unit residential development in the LAR12 Limited Apartment Residential District. Also located west of the site is a mixed-use development in the LC4 Limited Commercial District. East of the site across Stelzer Road is an undeveloped land in the R Rural Residential District and in Mifflin Township. South of the site is a culinary school in the LC4 Limited Commercial District. The site is within the boundaries of the Northeast Area Plan, which recommends office uses at this location. The site is located within the boundaries of the Northeast Area Commission, whose recommendation was not available at the time this report was finalized. The applicant met with the zoning committee of the commission on February 19, 2020, and the committee recommended that the application be considered by the full commission, but meetings have been delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The applicant has requested that the Development Commission consider this application absent the recommendation of the commission. The written request from the applicant is included on pages 11 and 12. The CPD text permits office uses with limited accessory commercial uses and contains a commitment to a development plan. The request also includes variances to reduce the parking setbacks, lighting and landscaping requirements, and aisle width to exceed the maximum parking requirement and to allow aisles, parking spaces, driveways, and maneuvering areas to be divided by property lines. The Columbus Multimodal Thoroughfare Plan identifies this portion of Stelzer Road as a suburban community corridor with 120 feet of right-of-way. The requested CPD Commercial Plan Development District will establish a unified zoning district for an existing development, legitimize the northern parking lot and existing site conditions, and includes the development standards to accommodate a future lot split. The CPD text establishes appropriate use restrictions, that limits the development to office and limited accessory commercial uses, which is consistent with the recommendations of the Northeast Area Plan. The text also includes development standards that demonstrate sufficient buffering and landscaping from neighboring residential uses, incorporates a detailed site plan, and commits to conform to community commercial overlay standards upon redevelopment of the site. The rezoning request does not represent an introduction of incompatible uses to the surrounding neighborhood. Therefore, staff's recommendation is for approval, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, any questions? Okay, traffic issues?
Traffic management has no issues with this application.
And is Kathy among us?
Yes, sir. Recreation Parks has no concerns.
Okay, and is it true that the Northeast Area Commission is meeting regarding this right now simultaneously?
No,
It is not?
no, sir. This is Mike Shannon speaking.
Oh, have they met yet?
No, sir. They are not scheduled to meet for the month of June, and July is uncertain at this point.
All right, we've encountered this before, and we have a pretty reasonable game plan. And that is that we'll hear any input or any discussion. We will vote. The vote is conditional on when that commission meets, they meet in approval. If they disapprove, and I mean, as a board, they disapprove, then you have to come back and we have to discuss it. We've put cases through before where they were under a very difficult schedule, especially with the area commission meeting after we meet, and that would put them behind 2 more months. So with that in mind, Michael, you understand that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I could address it in the context of my presentation, or I can address it now.
Why don't you address it now? Well, we got to
Okay.
on the plane first.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'd respectfully submit that we were heard by the zoning committee on February 19th. As the testimony will indicate, this is a hyper-technical variance due to accommodate a lot split and provide for the sale of the former Bradford School of Technologies, 2 buildings that have been sitting vacant for a long time. And that transaction is conditioned on zoning approvals by July 31st. The Northeast Area Commission liaison has been very helpful. She is personally aware that we have not had meetings the entire month of March, April, May, and now June. Quite frankly, the forecast for July is not promising. Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, we would seek your approval tonight. And if we are unable to meet with the Northeast Area Commission prior to the council meeting, we'd be willing to let your decision to fall to a no recommendation for that reason, rather than come back to the commission a month later and miss our deadline on the zoning. So with all due respect, we understand the position you're in. This is uncharted waters with respect to a 4-month delay at an area commission. And the 5th month, again, does not look very promising according to staff. So I just say that for background purposes, because it would be our preference to forge ahead. We would have a technical approval that would default to a disapproval if they can't get their meeting together in July. And if they do get it together, we will go and seek their approval. If for some reason they disapprove, we'll take the no and go, Mr. Chairman. And I mean that with all due respect, but this transaction has been pending these votes for 4 months now.
Yeah, I totally understand, and I agree with your format.
Okay.
It is noted that there are, I believe, I don't see any, I better ask Shannon, are there any speakers here to oppose this application number 1?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. That doesn't mean they aren't at their own meeting, but.
There is no meeting tonight, sir.
Oh, there is no meeting. Okay.
No, sir, that's the problem.
Okay. Yes, Shannon?
I was just going to say, I believe, Mike Shannon, if I'm correct, did you not meet with the Northeast Area Commission Zoning Committee at least one time on this matter?
Yes, we did, and they
And-
recommended it on to the full commission,
Right.
who has not
So
met
there
since
There
February
has been
19th.
some area commission interaction on this
So
application.
there's good faith there, and it's unfortunate when you don't get the horse in front of the carriage, but a 3-4 month delay is just not the kind of thing we want to do.
Well, with that, Mr. Chairman, I can very briefly tell you that this is by all means a technical rezoning and a companion council variance. The attorney who rezoned this site for Bradford School 20 years ago screwed up. That was me. And I could have consolidated into one zoning category at that time, but notwithstanding that issue, the parcel to the far north, the parking lot, for reasons that aren't clear to staff or me, was not appropriately part of the rezoning. So we had to clean that up. But for that issue, I believe the previous ordinance had provisions for the lot split that would have stood for themselves. But when you add in the parking lot to the north, that technically it's still zoned R1, it's obvious that we had to do a rezoning application to try to make this 20-year-old zoning comport with existing standards and to include that parking lot to the north. So we've done that to the satisfaction of staff. We had no negative feedback from the zoning commission, who predominate the full commission as well. It's noteworthy. And with that, I'd answer any questions you may have.
All right, and I might point out that in your package is a letter dated May 21, 2020 from Aaron Underhill citing the format for area commission, neighborhood commission meetings, and the difficulties there, and if their failure to meet disrupts the schedule. So I think it's the action we're about to take is fair to everybody, at least as far as I see it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, your point's very well taken. The code actually does not require the recommendation, but as you know, as a matter of practice, we always endeavor to do that.
Well, it's important that you did start with the zoning commission of the area
Yes, sir. Thank you.
and show some respect there. So based on that, I would like, unless anybody has any other comments, I'd like to have the roll called. Anybody? Okay, please call the roll.
Marty Anderson,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Amanda Golden,
Yes.
John Ingerson,
Yes.
Kay Onwukwe,
Yes.
and Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay, case number 2, Z20-015, 975 Hilliard Rome Road.
The 0.97 acre site consists of one parcel developed with a commercial building, which upon completing the annexation process into the city of Columbus, will be assigned the R Rural District. The requested C4 commercial district will secure proper zoning for the existing building and will permit most commercial uses. North of the site is a fueling station in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. South of the site is a home improvement store in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. East of the site across Hilliard and Rome Road is an eating and drinking establishment in the C4 Commercial District. And west of the site is a hotel and car washing facility in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The site is within the planning boundaries of the Trey B. Roberts Area Plan, which recommends community commercial land uses. The site is within the boundaries of the Far West Side Area Commission, whose recommendation is for approval. The proposed C4 commercial district will permit most commercial uses, including the existing business. The proposed C4 district is consistent with the Trey B. Roberts Area Plan, recommendation for neighborhood commercial land uses, and with the surrounding commercial zoning pattern along Hilliard and Rome Road, and therefore the City Department's recommendation is for approval of this request.
Okay, any comments from the commission? Traffic.
Traffic management has no issues with this application.
All right, and recreation and parks? Kathy? I'll take that as no problem with this. Okay, is there anybody here to speak regarding this application?
Hi, my name is Greg Moncrief. I'm an attorney with Blank Law Firm here on behalf of the applicant. Not much more to add. Nothing will change with the site. It's occupied by an office building. This is just a rezoning to be done in conjunction with an annexation that was recently approved. So I'm here for any questions if anybody has them.
Okay, anybody? Okay, this is a very simple case. Please call the roll.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Amanda Golden,
Yes.
John Ingerson,
Yes.
Kay Onwukwe,
Yes.
Marty Anderson,
Yes.
and Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved.
Thank you.
Okay, case number 3, Z20-008, 364 East Whittier.
Bear with me, I need to get the PowerPoint back up here. Okay. The site is developed with a vacant appliance store, which was rendered non-conforming with a city-sponsored downzoning of the property to the R2F residential district in 1999. CB 18-089 permitted a mixed-use development at this site, including an eating and drinking establishment in the western half of the existing building and a 5-unit apartment building in the eastern half of the building, but that project is not being pursued. The requested CPD, Commercial Plan Development District, will permit conversion of the existing building into an eating and drinking establishment and permits other commercial uses. The site is surrounded by development in the R2F residential district. To the north and east are single-unit dwellings. To the south and southwest across East Whittier Street are an eating and drinking establishment and a retail apartment building. To the west across Brook Street is a hair salon apartment building. The site is within the planning area of the South Side Plan, which recommends medium to high density residential uses at this location. The site is also subject to the Columbus Citywide Planning Policies design guidelines. Both documents recommend that landscaping and screening should be used to minimize the impact of non-residential uses on adjacent residences, and that expanded uses should provide adequate parking. Planning Division staff recognizes that the site is in a historic commercial corner and is supportive of the proposed use. The site is also within walking distance to transit access, and with the inclusion of additional bicycle parking in excess of those required by city code, the proposed parking reduction can be supported. The CPD text includes standards addressing setbacks, bicycle parking, rooftop patio size limitations and screening, landscaping, and facade commitments. Variances to reduce the minimum number of required parking spaces from 107 to 0, to eliminate screening between commercial and residential districts, reduce the building line from 25 feet to 0 feet, and to reduce the required distance separation from a church or school from 500 feet to 300 feet for an eating and drinking establishment that offers live entertainment are included in this request. A parking study was required and has been approved by the Division of Parking Services, and the size of the patio has been reduced from an initial 4,800 square feet to 3,500 square feet. The site is within the boundaries of the Columbus South Side Area Commission, whose recommendation is for approval of the requested CPD district. The requested CPD, Commercial Plan Development District, would allow the existing commercial building to be used for limited C4 commercial uses, including an eating and drinking establishment. While commercial uses are a departure from the South Side Plan land use recommendation for multi-unit residential uses, Planning Division staff views the request as appropriate given the location on an historic commercial corner located in a walkable transit-served corridor. The applicant has also committed to limiting the size of the rooftop patio with appropriate screening and has provided additional parking. You will also note in the supplemental packet that there are 4 letters of support and 2 letters of opposition. And I believe there are a few speakers that would like to speak on this matter. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any.
All right, first of all, anybody have any questions with Shannon's report?
I do. I have a couple questions. Shannon, you mentioned something about the rooftop being limited and that there's additional parking provided. What are those details?
The patio, okay, bicycle parking, additional bicycle parking is provided on site. There are no parking spaces. There historically has never been any parking spaces for this development. And the rooftop patio decreased in size from 4,800 square feet initially to 3,500 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Is there, are there any historical guidelines with this structure? I didn't see anything in the list. I just wanted to double check.
There are not.
Yeah, it's not listed on the historic register.
Okay.
Okay, we know we got speakers. Anybody have any other comments or questions? Traffic, we heard in Shannon's report, has been attended to. Are there any loose ends there with that, Daniel?
No loose ends from a traffic perspective.
I would imagine on a 1800ths of an acre site, there's no parks and recreation issues.
That is correct.
Okay. The applicant is here. Would you have anything to add to the staff report, or would you like to hear from the speakers and then rebut and talk about your case after them?
If I may, Chairman Fitzpatrick.
Yes, sir.
David Hodge here, attorney for the applicant and property owner, Whittier ABC. I don't know whether Shannon is able to pull back up the PowerPoint, but you'll recall that part of that showed it was actually old photographs of the historical commercial facades on these 2 buildings. This property is today zoned R2F, as is much of the historic neighborhoods, whether it's German Village or Schumacher Place or several of the others in town. But clearly, this is not an R2F property, and it's never been an R2F property. The buildings on this property developed before zoning existed, and they are commercial buildings in a residential district. The R2F went into place. They became legal non-conforming commercial uses in the R2F residential district. It's important, I think, to go back and recollect part of what Shannon said, which is that all 4 corners of this particular intersection at Whittier and Bruck are commercial. This is directly across the street from the famous Hey Hey, which I'm sure many of you know, caddy corner from kind of a knick-knack antique shop, and across Bruck from a hair salon. And while this is not in German Village, it is very near German Village, and it's the corner commercial of neighborhoods like this, which in my opinion, make these urban neighborhoods so special. If you think about in proximity to this, just down Whittier, you can think of Brown Bag, which is a commercial use with 0 parking, part of the fabric of the neighborhood. Barcelona, just down the street, the dry cleaner down the street. Many commercial corner commercial uses in the neighborhood, and this is another. So there was reference to a previous process that we went through in this neighborhood. That was to establish the top picture there as being a commercial establishment, restaurant with a 5-unit building to the east. That was a council variance, so the Development Commission didn't see that one. but it went on to council and was ultimately approved. So this site is entitled for that use now. For various reasons, that project wasn't going to work. So we worked with staff to reapproach this. It was then determined that the appropriate approach was to rezone it, get it into the right classification. There isn't really a classification that meets this zero setback along an urban street. So we went to the CPD where we could request the appropriate number, the appropriate variances to build the zoning around the way the property is actually developed. One of the other things that has been certainly a part of the discussion related to this development throughout is parking. And the city has a relatively new policy that you have to do a parking study when you're requesting a parking variance over a certain threshold. So my client here engaged Carpenter Marty, one of the best traffic engineers in town, to go out and put together a parking study, submitted that to Daniel Moorhead and his colleagues in traffic management. That parking study has been reviewed and approved. And the conclusion there is that there is plenty of on-street parking in the immediate vicinity to serve the commercial uses of these properties. The other thing that we all need to remember as we approach this is they're developed commercially now with zero parking. And before the parking code got adopted, they were served, they were commercially used with zero parking. So there's already a parking deficit, associated with the commercial development of this. And the last thing I think I'll say before I come back and hopefully have an opportunity to say something at the end is it's certainly been a difficult process. The council variance process on this was difficult. Ultimately, city council saw fit to approve that council variance legislation unanimously. We've come through the process here. We had a split vote out of Schumacher Place, but Schumacher Place Civic Association did ultimately recommend disapproval, and you'll most certainly hear from some of their representatives here in a bit. But we went on to the zoning committee of the Southside Area Commission and the full Southside Area Commission, both of whom recommended approval, as does city staff, zoning, planning, traffic management, et cetera. So we certainly respectfully request your positive recommendation of this on to city council, and we'll be eager to field some questions later and hear from some other folks here that have an opinion on the appropriateness of this request.
Okay, great. Let's, how many speakers do we have, Shannon?
I'm aware of one opposition speaker, Ms. Brenda Gishel, but I don't know that I see her on here. Brenda, are you here?
Shannon, I am here.
Okay, so we have Brenda, and then we have a few proponents, Ms. Carly Maggio, Ms. Kathy Green. Do you want to hear the opposition or proponents first?
Let's hear the opposition first. We're going to go by the typical council rules. 3 minutes.
I got it in the hearing. Okay, sounds good. Thanks. Bye.
You got 3 minutes. Give us your information as clear as you can.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear.
Zoning.
Terrific. Mine still says,
like when you
my
get something
computer
for your
still
home,
says I'm muted.
residential to build something, building something out by the club.
We're getting Dave Anderson instead of our speaker.
Anderson, we need to meet you.
All right. May I speak? My name is Brenda Gishel. I am representative because I am the president of Schumacher Place Civic Association. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you. The following statements that I am going to make are why we did not vote in support of rezoning 364 Whittier Street. We, as a community, want the historic building restored. Aaron has already started it. I have driven past and it looks wonderful. Schumacher Place was rezoned in 2000 by City Council to an R2F for the very reason of controlling our walkable residential neighborhood from future changes. Whittier Street is not a Livingston or a Parsons Avenue corridor. It is over 90% residential, with some of our most historical brick homes present. Rezoning can change a neighborhood. We do not want this to set a precedent for future development and lose our residential neighborhood. Secondly, the patio was negotiated out of the previous variance request for this address because noise control was a concern. The patio at the rooftop could afford neighbors feeling very vulnerable in their home to the north of the property. Mr. Crest has purchased the property directly to the east. Third, parking was a consideration. Though the study showed ample parking available at a distance of up to 2.5 blocks away, it is commonly known that people choose to park as close as possible to a business. There are many residents on Whittier Street that do not have off-street parking. We are aware that many of the issues in the C4 for this CPD were excluded that we objected to, and we appreciate that. We voted as the Civic Association on March 3rd, 2020, prior to those exclusions. The purpose that Mr. Crest wants for this building is an eating and drinking establishment, and we feel this could be accomplished by a less encompassing zoning code. Our community voted 24-17 against rezoning. I submit this to you respectfully. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are any other speakers in opposition? Okay, let's hear from our first speaker for the project. 3 minutes as well. Who's first? Anybody?
I'll go. It's Kathy Green. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, great. I'm Kathy Green. I live at 458 East Whittier Street, and I'm speaking today in support of this application. We own and live at our home that is located 2 blocks east of the applicant property and have done so for over 8 years. I'm a member of the Schumacher Place Civic Association and the Columbus Southside Area Commission Zoning Committee. I currently serve as the president of the Parsons Area Merchants Association, which promotes and supports existing businesses and property owners in the Parsons Avenue corridor and throughout the South Columbus. I did attend the Civic Association Zoning Committee and Area Commission hearings on this application, and I want to address some of the concerns expressed. With regards to parking, because these 2 buildings have been underused or vacant for many years, the nearest neighbors have not adjusted to sharing this parking on the city streets with the neighborhood businesses. In many cases, these business properties have been part of the neighborhood fabric since the early 1900s. While it is desirable to park in front of one's house, as a resident who also works from home, I can assure you that there is ample street parking available within 2 blocks of the subject property. Tom Last, who is an area commissioner for Marion Village and also a senior associate at Wolpert, so he does this as a profession, did additional review of the data from the parking study that was conducted at the behest of city staff. He reviewed a smaller set of blocks, both 1.5 blocks and 1 to 1.25 blocks, which the neighborhood felt was more in line with expectations. And even with that smaller area, the peak parking utilization did not exceed 80%. I do believe that this additional data review helped the Area Commission and the Zoning Committee to express approval for this application. The other main concern is around the rooftop patio, which has been partially mitigated by purchasing of the adjacent property to the east. On the north is an alley, on the west is a public street, and also there'll be a full barrier between the neighborhood and the patio. The positive aspects that I see here are the repurposing of historic spaces with improvements to the facade, addition of one or more walkable businesses for the neighborhood to reduce the need to travel to other neighborhoods by car, which add traffic and congestion to those neighborhoods, creation of additional jobs for city residents, and increasing the tax base. I do feel that the positive impacts of this application outweigh any perceived negative issues, and I advocate for your approval tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Okay, do we have another speaker, please?
Hi. Hi, can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I guess I'll just read it. I'm Carly Maggio, and I live on Kossuth on the block right behind 364 East Whittier between Brook and Beach. My boyfriend and I have lived in the South Side for almost 5 years now. For the first couple of years, we lived on Gate Street in Marion Village. In the last few years, we've lived on Kossuth. I actually know Aaron because I was previously the architect that helped him with the original concept for this project. I now work at a different firm, but I've kept a close eye on the project. I think his proposal to keep both existing buildings as commercial is the right move. I love living in Schumacher for a lot of reasons, but the mix of commercial spaces within our residential neighborhood is one of the main reasons. We feel really lucky to live in a place where we're in walking distance from a grocery store, bars, restaurants, coffee shops, bakeries, and a bookstore. These are the things that make this a great neighborhood to live in. From an overview, the R2F zoning that covers most of Schumacher Place and German Village and Marion Village would suggest a very different neighborhood, one that wouldn't allow for any of these amenities we enjoy. It was zoned without addressing many of the unique exceptions to the R2F zoning. Luckily for us, places like Skillet, Hey Hey, Barcelona, and Brown Bag, and this goes on beyond Whittier, still exist despite the zoning and suggests that there needs to be room for flexibility and room for adjustment. What Aaron is working with and trying to bring back to life are clearly existing buildings that have never fit into the R2F zoning, and we should be taking advantage of them rather than letting them sit vacant. I understand the concern of our parking deficit and noise, and I also know that almost all the existing bars and restaurants we already know and love have these same issues and would face the same scrutiny if newly proposed today. Yet they've proven that they work and make this neighborhood better and more desirable in the end. I think that this will be the case here. Even before I moved to Schumacher or met Aaron, I was really excited about these buildings. I hope this rezoning passes and that Aaron can bring out their full potential. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's get our applicant back.
Did you want me to have a few remarks?
Yes, please. David, you heard the comments. Anything you want to say in rebuttal before we go forward?
You know, I might just reiterate that it certainly has been a challenging property to work with, but having these two buildings return to being contributing commercial uses in this neighborhood is, in my estimation and in the estimation of the city staff and by a 9-2 vote at the Columbus Southside Area Commission, absolutely the right thing to do. The R2F zoning is just not the right zoning here, not even close. We should have the zoning of the property match the historical uses back to when the property was originally developed, and that's what we seek to do here. In terms of
David, can I ask you one simple question?
Sure.
We heard that the purchase of the house next door, commercial across the street, and commercial on the corner. What do you have in mind to act as the buffer for the rooftop garden on that fourth unprotected side?
Well, if you flip over into the CPD text, Chairman Fitzpatrick, there's some detail provided there. I believe along the north and the east, we committed to an 8-foot, 100% opaque buffer. That's the north and the east. That's the residential perimeters of the patio. to the west and to the south are onto what are essentially commercial corners. And so we don't have any screening. We're not trying to hide the patio from those two perspectives. The other thing that you mentioned, but I'll reiterate, is that my client here in the interim actually acquired the house to the east and is in the process of cleaning that house up. And it's aesthetically wasn't the biggest contributor in the neighborhood. So by the time he's done, it's going to be that much more improvement to this neighborhood.
Okay, good answer. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I do.
Yes.
So a couple of questions. One, I heard in the earlier presentation, live entertainment. So I'd like you to comment on that. Is that going to be something that goes on the roof patio?
Well, under this variance, as it's written, there could be some very limited, like a guitar player or something going on up there, but it's 3,500 square feet, and we felt that it was important, based upon some relatively recent issues that happened down in German Village, that we should incorporate this variance into our request. But this is not going to be. It would be very limited in terms of any kind of entertainment that goes on here at this location.
Yeah, I'm concerned that there is no limitation text on that. And then the other question is, you're committing to a site plan which is absolutely as thin as can be from CPD. If the rooftop is part of the deal, and we're going to give you a liberal interpretation of what the C4 is able to support. I think the screening is huge. I don't believe that any place in German Village has rooftop entertainment for 3,500 square feet. So that's a concern. And also, you're going to restore these facades to something historical, it appears. How's the rooftop piece fit with that? It's a little bit of a pig in a poke. And then additionally, the description in the package lists these as 2-story. Where's the second story?
I'm not sure where it says that, Mr. Ingerson. They are really 1-story buildings.
Okay. So no proposed, I mean, if we give you a C4 on this and you decide, you're going to have to support the roof somehow. The building steps back all the way along to the north. So I'm concerned, since this is not in German Village, you're not going to get the sort of scrutiny of what the facades look like with an addition, but you're going to have to do some kind of structure in order to support whatever roof deck you do. And I've seen enough of this kind of stuff around the country that it can be problematic. So I would be more comfortable if you defined what that rooftop was going to be before this was given, especially based on the fact that on your earlier rezoning of this, the rooftop was negotiated out and now it's back in. So it just seems a little bit overreaching to me. That's my opinion, and you're certainly welcome to comment on that, please.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the patio. And The patio previously was not on the roof. It was back along the north end of the building at grade along the alley adjacent to the residence there, and that was predominantly the concern at that time, which we decided to remove from the request altogether. This patio will be 3,500 square feet down. If bird's eye site plan is up there now, down in the southwest corner of the building. All the northern portion and the eastern portion, even though we own the east, will be screened with 100% opacity up to 8 feet. And you're correct about some work that would be necessary to incorporate the patio. I'm at a disadvantage on that component because you're an architect and I'm not. I don't know my client's on here. If he wants to speak to that aspect a little bit, he knows he's much more intimately aware of the issues with the building than I am, and maybe he can jump in here and say a few words about that.
Yeah, can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah, so in regards to the amplification and some of the concerns around the language of nightclub or that kind of establishment, a lot of that's coming from the Wonder Bar and German Village and just trying to make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's on that. In regards to what exactly is a cabaret, and maybe Shannon would be better at explaining that, or David. As far as the rooftop goes, I'm imagining something very simple as far as least aesthetically noticeable as possible on top of the existing parapet wall, because the roof's already dropped down beneath the parapet. So I guess my goal is to minimize the look of the rooftop patio, not accentuate it. And like David said, 2 of the perimeters will be hardscaped to look basically like the rest of the building. That adequately answers it.
I have a comment on that. As it stands, rooftop live load for structural code is 25 pounds per square foot.
Correct.
Place of assembly is at least 100 pounds a square foot. And I think you're in the zone where there could be some, after the Ohio State games, if they allow any people inside the stadium, where you would have a lot of people there. So noise is more than visual effect. The noise effect is of the greatest concern. If you live in a neighboring house, the sound's carrying off that roof, and no one's going to control the guy with the amplifier and the guitar or whatever kind of top 40 kind of music that's played. It's not going to be a quiet thing. I feel a little bit ambivalent about handing off a blank check for the unknown of what sort of music's going to be generated. I think you're okay with visual, but how are you going to trap the noise so it doesn't intrude to the other neighbors in that closely packed neighborhood?
Chairman Fitzpatrick, I wonder whether the commission would be comfortable with, and maybe I'd have to ask the city too, an addition to the text that stipulated that there couldn't be any outdoor amplification of sound or any outdoor music past 10 p.m.
Well, that would be a heck of a lot better than an open-ended for that activity.
We're happy to do that.
There may be, there will be an issue here because of the residential zoning. If you change this to a C4, it's a question whether the health department gets involved or not, but I believe there's a 60 decibel limit to noise, and then it drops it drops in the evening. I mean, you're going to have neighbors that are having problems with the quiet enjoyment of the property. And I really think you need to figure this rooftop thing out before you get a blank check.
As I'm in Victorian Village, and I think the ideas of, I'm not sure why the feedback is a problem, but the issue of the mixed use isn't an issue. I think it is the rooftop lounge and also potentially the parking timing, because the timing, at least I don't believe this area is in the parking overlay or whatever we are all in Victorian and Italian and German Village. And we suffered greatly with the mix with restaurants and bars and that kind of thing, because they were coming in when residents wanted to be home. And that it's not so much the availability of the parking, it's the timing of the parking. And so that's just a caution that I have, but I agree on the, my concern on the rooftop was the noise, not the visibility.
I may chime in for a second here. My name is Katerina Carrick, and I work with the law firm of Underhill and Hodge. I've been working with Aaron and David on this project, and the ordinance that regulates noise control is 232911. Initially, we had explored the option of addressing noise through the zoning text. It's not a zoning issue. It is something that is in the general offense code, and it's something that would be enforced by an enforcement agency like the Columbus Police Department. So it didn't seem appropriate to address the noise concerns through the zoning text itself, because it's not like the staff will come out there at 10 o'clock at night to address the noise complaints. The community noise ordinance does apply. And as somebody had mentioned, there is a limit on the amount of decibels that can be emanated from the property from 7 to 10 p.m. and then from 10 to 7 a.m. Looking at some of the other properties in the area that also have patios, they have defaulted to the noise ordinance as well. It's not something that's traditionally addressed through the zoning text. But as David mentioned, I don't see a problem with placing a condition in the motion tonight to limit the use of an amplification system after 10 o'clock or something of that sort. The other thing that I just want to bring up, I was able to pull up the definition of bar, cabaret, and nightclub. The reason why we have those, the variants addressing these uses in the text is because the definitions are overly broad. If you look at a definition of a cabaret, it includes a restaurant where performers dance, sing, or engage in plays for patrons. It doesn't say on a regular basis or occasionally. And I think some of the establishments, as Aaron had mentioned, the Wonder Bar, perhaps even Schmidt's or Hofbrauhaus would fit the definition of a cabaret because the definitions are so broad. So there's no intention to incorporate these types of uses in the at this establishment. However, out of an abundance of precaution, I think we wanted to include that variance just in case a complaint did come in, if there was a guitar session or something of that sort once in a while that raised some concerns. Now, having said that, I also think it's important to note that under the existing zoning text, the property is limited to the existing building. So there's a firm commitment to keep those buildings on site. At any point, if Aaron wants to rezone this property or build something else on it, he has to go through the rezoning process. This property cannot be under what we're proposing here. It cannot be the buildings cannot be demolished and developed into some other type of an establishment. It's the zoning in itself is very limited because those buildings are a firm commitment in the zoning text. Lastly, I also think it's important to note that Aaron is he's a South Sider. He's got his business, his office there. He has other properties that he has purchased that were vacant and blighted, and he has gone ahead and turned them into true community assets. I don't think we have pictures of other projects that he's had in the area, but just keep in mind the fact that he is somebody who has purchased probably half a dozen to a dozen properties on the south side and brought them from a vacant, blighted condition into a true community asset, occupied, code compliant, beautiful properties. And with his office on the south side, I imagine that if there are any concerns with noise or something of that sort, you know, he's right down the block. He's easy to find. He's not somebody who's trying to develop this property in a irresponsible way that would upset the neighbors.
The other thing I might just jump in here quickly and say is that, and I know that I think most of you know this, but we're just want to make sure that we are not zoning this to a straight C4. We're zoning it to a CPD, and the plan is a little flimsy, and that's really because it's already a developed site. And in the CPD, we've incorporated a relatively comprehensive list of uses that we've excluded from the C4 district. So we're not a straight C4. We have some exclusions in there.
I think this all boils down, David, to the intensity of what's happening on that roof. And, you know, the South Sider may not own this forever. He may sell it to somebody else, and whatever happens with the letters CPD and the text that we have is not the hometown homespun user anymore. It's a different person. So the text has to keep this from being overly obtrusive to the people who are there. You know, if this was only the patio on the ground level and refurbishing those buildings, it's a fabulous infill, but it's treading very loosely on that roof, and the intensity that is offered when there are people gathering, nobody's going to be the cop that tells them to shut up.
We'll gladly commit to no live entertainment at all on the rooftop.
You know, that's a huge commitment in my book, my own personal point of view. That's a great gathering place for people to enjoy the night air and be in the neighborhood. And now you're not going to be wafting that music through somebody's bedroom windows and waking up the baby down the street. So if you'll make that commitment, that I think that's formidable.
We'll make that commitment and amend the CPD text accordingly, and work with Shannon and the staff to make sure that the language in there satisfies them for that commitment.
All right, we have discussed this now for 45 minutes. Let's have a motion. Shannon, did you record what David just said?
Yes.
All right, to the effect, without rehashing every syllable, to the effect of what David just promised for the intensity of use on that roof, I'd like a motion from the commission to add that to this application tonight. I need a motion and a second.
So move.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of adding that commitment to this application, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, with that said, please call the roll.
Amanda Golden,
Yes.
John Ingerson,
Yes.
Kay Onwukwe,
Yes.
Marty Anderson,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
I appreciate your flexibility, and I think you'll be a great addition to the neighborhood. I vote yes.
Thank you all very much. I hope to see you face to face next month.
Yeah. A little more comforting. Okay, let's move along to case number 4, Z20-016-2492 West Dublin Granville Road.
The 0.90 acre site consists of one undeveloped parcel zoned in the R Rural District as a result of a recent annexation from Perry Township. The requested C2 commercial district would allow the development of an office building. North and east of the site is a religious facility located in Perry Township. South of the site, across West Dublin Granville Road, is a commercial building and an auto repair facility in the LC4 Limited Commercial District. West of the site is an office building in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The site is within the boundaries of the Northwest Plan, which recommends low-density residential land uses at this location. The site is also located within the West Dublin Granville Road Community Commercial Overlay. The site is located within the boundaries of the Far Northwest Coalition, whose recommendation is for approval. Concurrent CV 20-020 has been filed to reduce community commercial overlay setbacks and building design standards for building width and amount of required glass. That request also includes a commitment to participate in a driveway consolidation with the property to the west, should an appropriate cross-access easement become available. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. You'll also note that in the supplemental packet, you'll see a letter from the adjacent property owner with the Lord of Life Lutheran Church from the property to the east regarding a proposed cross-access easement, which is no longer being pursued. The Columbus Multimodal Thoroughfare Plan identifies this portion of Dublin Granville Road as a suburban commuter corridor with 120 feet of right-of-way. The requested C2 commercial district will permit the development of an approximately 7,736 square foot office building. While the Northwest Plan recommends low-density residential land uses at this location, the plan also supports redevelopment proposals along primary corridors if the proposal is consistent with the intensities of surrounding uses and meets design principles. This proposal is compatible with the development pattern along this portion of Dublin Granville Road and incorporates design elements that are consistent with the recommendations of the plan. Therefore, staff's recommendation is for approval, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? Okay, Daniel, traffic issues here?
All traffic issues have been addressed for this application.
Okay, and recreation and parks? Okay, is there any questions from anybody on the commission? Any comments? Anybody? Shannon, is anyone here to speak regarding this application?
Not that I'm aware of.
We have Aaron Newman here from Far Northwest that's wanting to speak on the recommendation of Far Northwest Coalition.
Okay. Will you step forward to the microphone in your house and speak?
Aaron, are you here?
Going once.
I don't think he's here.
Yeah, I don't see him.
What was on his mind? Do you know from your contact?
He just said that he wanted to speak on the Far Northwest Coalition's recommendation of approval. So I'm not really sure the details outside of that, but.
5-0 unanimous approval, so it must have been positive. All right, well, everything else is positive. Anybody have any questions or comments? We didn't need any heavy lifting from it. Please call the roll.
John Ingerson,
Yes.
Kay Onwukwe,
Yes.
Marty Anderson,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Amanda Golden,
Yes.
Sheriff Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you're approved. Case number 4 is complete.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You bet. You did the hard work and got everything covered.
Thank you, sir.
Case number 5 has been tabled, so we will move to case number 6. Z20-005. And the address is 1836 Lockbourne Road.
Okay, the 3.4 acre site consists of 8 undeveloped parcels in the LM Limited Manufacturing District. The requested AR1 apartment residential and R3 residential districts will permit multi-unit and single-unit residential development. North of the site is a multi-unit residential development in the R4 residential district. South of the site are single-unit dwellings in the R2 residential district and a retail establishment in the C4 commercial district. East of the site is a single-unit dwelling in the R2 residential district. West of the site across Lockbourne Road are single-unit dwellings in the R4 residential and C2 commercial districts and a 4-unit dwelling in the R4 residential district. The site is within the planning boundaries of the South Side Plan, which recommends community commercial land uses at this location. Additionally, the site is within an area that has early adoption of the C2P2 design guidelines. The site is within the boundaries of the Columbus South Side Area Commission, whose recommendation is for approval. This rezoning application has a concurrent CV that has been filed, and that includes variances to building height, setbacks, and other yard and area standards. Additionally, the site will be developed in accordance with an associated site plan, which is on your screen right now for reference only. And that request will be heard by City Council and not considered at this Development Commission meeting. The proposed AR1 apartment residential district and R3 residential district will permit a mix of multi-unit residential and single-unit dwellings on the site. The proposed districts are arranged in a way that the higher density AR1 district is located along Lockbourne Road and Smith Road, while the R3 district will allow 7 single-unit dwellings along the eastern property line. Although the Southside Plan recommends community commercial at this location, Planning Division staff views the request for the AR1 district to be a less intense use than the current LM Limited Manufacturing District zoning. C2P2 design guidelines state that priority should be placed on the revitalization of Columbus's older neighborhoods through infill development with access to transit, and that building placement and design should contribute to a pedestrian-friendly streetscape and face public streets. Staff believe these guidelines have been met with the building design and site layout proposed in CV 20-011, and therefore city departments are recommending approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone, any questions? Okay, traffic, Dame?
No traffic issues.
Okay, recreation and parks? No comment there. Any questions from the commission? Okay, you got the staff approval and the area commission approval, 11-0. Today we would call this a down zoning, but we don't use that term now. But if anyone has anything to say, stand up and say it. Otherwise, it's time to call the roll. Please call the roll.
Kay Onwukwe,
Yes.
Marty Anderson,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Amanda Golden,
Yes.
John Ingerson,
Yes.
Sheriff Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved. Okay, moving on to case number 7, Z20-021, 1873 East Livingston Avenue.
The site consists of 2 parcels zoned in the C4 commercial district, with the west parcel being developed with a parking lot and the east parcel developed with the former Livingston Theater undergoing conversion to a 45-unit senior housing apartment building. The applicant proposes the AR3 apartment residential and CPD commercial plan development district to permit the continued development of the apartment building and accessory parking lots as permitted by CB 16-075. That ordinance was conditioned on the applicant submitting a rezoning application to rezone the property to an appropriate zoning district to reflect the senior housing land use within 18 months of the effective date of the ordinance. To the north of the site, across Livingston Avenue, are single-unit dwellings in the R2F residential district and a vacant commercial building in the C4 commercial district. To the south are single-unit dwellings in the AR1 apartment residential district. To the east and west are commercial development in the C4 commercial district. Concurrent CB 20-023 has been filed to vary the minimum numbers of parking spaces required, vision clearance triangles, building lines, maximum side yard, rear yard, and lot coverage. That request is heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. The site is located within the boundaries, or within the Livingston Avenue urban commercial overlay, and is within the planning area of the near south side plan, which recommends neighborhood mixed-use land uses for this location. Additionally, the plan includes adoption of the Columbus citywide planning policies design guidelines. The site is located within the boundaries of the Livingston Avenue Area Commission, whose recommendation is for approval. The development text commits to a site plan and includes provisions for access, landscaping, lighting, and graphics commitments. The requested AR3 apartment residential and CPD commercial plan development will allow a residential development that is compatible with the density and development standards of adjacent residential developments. The proposal is also consistent with the land use recommendations of the Southside Plan. Although the proposed development exceeds the recommended density in the plan, the request would result in the preservation of an existing contributing building and will add to the traditional and established development pattern along East Livingston Avenue. City Department's recommendation is for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions by anybody? Okay, traffic.
No traffic issues.
And Kathy, anything with recreation and parks?
No concerns.
Okay, David, you just showed up on the screen. You have anything to add?
Just for appearance, Dave Perry on behalf of Woda Cooper Companies, and Joe McCabe, VP of Development for Woda Cooper. Cooper is also on the video conference. This application is to follow up on the commitment made with the council variance application to conform zoning to the development permitted by the variance, and it's either done and close to being occupied or close to being done.
Okay, good. Is anyone here to speak regarding this application? No one is to speak, and it's a very clean case. Please call the roll.
Marty Anderson,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Amanda Golden,
Yes.
John Ingerson,
Yes.
Teo Nwukwe,
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you're approved. Okay, let's go on to case number 8. Z19-0 or -100 261 Hamilton Avenue.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I switched my audio. So the site consists of 9 parcels developed with 1 vacant apartment building in the R2F residential district. The requested AR3 apartment residential district will permit a new multi-unit residential development. The site is surrounded by development in the R2F residential district. To the north across Mount Vernon Avenue is a church. To the northeast is a 0.81 acre site pending zoning to the AR1 apartment residential district, which we will be discussing next. To To the east across Hamilton Avenue is a townhouse development as provided by Council Variant CV 07-030. And to the south is a single unit dwelling. To the west is I-71. Concurrent CV 19-137 proposes a 51 unit apartment building and includes variances to increase maximum building height and lot coverage and to reduce the required number of parking spaces. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. The site is located within the boundaries of the Near East Area Plan, which does not contain a land use recommendation for this location. The plan does support the development of new infill housing that contributes to a walkable and diverse neighborhood, compatible with existing architecture in the area and with the plan's housing guidelines. The requested AR3 apartment residential district will allow a multi-unit residential development that is compatible with the established development pattern of the area. The Near East Area Plan supports the development of new infill housing that contributes to a walkable and diverse neighborhood, compatible with existing architecture in the area and with the plan's housing guidelines. As such, the Planning Division has requested that the that building elevations for the concurrent council variance be reviewed, and the applicant has submitted those elevations, and Planning Division is in support of those elevations. Therefore, staff's recommendation is for approval, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for Shannon? Okay, Dan, traffic.
No traffic issues.
And Kathy, recreation and parks.
No parks issues.
Okay, anyone here to speak regarding this application tonight?
Dave Perry here as agent for Kelly Companies. The project is as stated, one thing, and is supported by NEAC and city staff. We've shared architecture renderings with the planning staff, as Shannon indicated, and also with NEAC. There's a good bit of excitement about this project and the next one, which is just across the street that you'll hear next. Mr. Chairman, I wanted to bring one thing to your attention, and the timing on the Near East Area Commission recommendation is such that we have been through the zoning committee with a unanimous approval, but the NEAC meeting is tonight and is going on right now. So I have not completed the NEAC process, but expect to have their recommendation to staff tomorrow.
All right, and I don't know if you were here during this case where we discussed logistics. Approving you tonight, if they approve you, the job is done, you go forward to city council. If they do not approve you for some reason, and I note that there is nobody here to oppose you tonight. If you are opposed, then you need to come back and we need to talk about it further. For tonight's vote, we're assuming they're going to vote yes for you and you're on your way to city council.
Yep, I understand. Thank you.
Does anybody on the commission have any comment on that game plan? Okay, with that in mind, it's time to call the roll.
Maria Conroy.
Yes.
Amanda Golden.
Abstain.
John Ingerson.
Yes.
Kay Onwukwe.
Yes.
Marty Anderson.
Yes.
Sarah Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved. Looks like a great site for a great project. Okay, case number 9, Z20-042, 762 Mount Vernon Avenue.
The site consists of 12 parcels developed with a parking lot and a single unit dwelling in the R2F residential district. The requested AR1 apartment residential district will permit a new multi-unit residential development. The site surrounds 3 attached single unit dwellings in the R2F residential district. To the north is a parking lot in the P1 private parking district and undeveloped lots in the R2F residential district. To the east is a fraternal organization in the R2F residential district as approved by CBO 2-061. To the south across Mount Vernon Avenue is a townhouse development in the R2F residential district and R4 residential district as also approved by a council variance. To the southwest is a 0.63 acre site pending zoning to the AR3 apartment residential district, which we just discussed. And to the west across Hamilton Avenue is a church in the R2F residential district. Concurrent CV 20-048 proposes a 31-unit apartment building and includes variances for reduced parking lot landscaping and screening, parking setback, and side yards. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. The site is located within the boundaries of the Near East Area Plan, which does not contain a land use recommendation for this location. The plan does support the development of new infill housing that contributes to a walkable and diverse neighborhood that is compatible with existing architecture in the area and with the plan's housing guidelines. As previously discussed, this application is pending the Near East Area Commission recommendation. Their meeting is this evening, right at this moment. The requested AR1 apartment residential district will allow a multi-unit residential development that is compatible with the established development pattern of the area. The Near East Area Plan supports the development of new infill housing that contributes to a walkable and diverse neighborhood that is compatible with the existing architecture in the area and with the plan's housing guidelines. As such, the Planning Division has requested and reviewed building elevations for the concurrent council variance to review in accordance with the design guidelines and supports those proposed elevations. Therefore, staff's recommendation is for approval. I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Shannon? Okay, traffic, Dan?
No traffic issues.
And Kathy?
No parks issues.
Okay, going to make a nice little gateway to the David, you want to add any staff presentation?
Just Dave Perry here as agent for Kelly Companies. It is the two projects will make a very nice gateway on Hamilton and Mount Vernon. This is just a short distance west of the Urban League Center and the King Center and so on. The only comment is, as Shannon mentioned, this also is on the Near East Area Commission tonight. As we speak, Michael Kelly is covering the commission meeting, so we request to proceed with the same condition.
Okay, any comments? Any comments? All right, the same provision that we set in motion in the previous case, we'll give you our vote, and then we'll see if you get the expected yes vote at Northeast Area, you're on your way. Please call the roll.
Amanda Golden.
Abstain.
John Ingerson.
Yes.
Kay Onwukwe.
Yes.
Marty Anderson.
Yes.
Maria Conroy.
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved. And that takes us to case number 10. Z19-057, 7300 East Pearl Street.
In your supplemental packet that was emailed is an updated site plan and a revised CPD text. The site is primarily undeveloped, but contains a few residential structures in the R Rural District. The applicant is requesting a CPD, Commercial Plan Development District, to permit a 130-unit senior housing development. To the north and east are multi-unit residential developments in LAR 12, Limited Apartment Residential, and ARLD Apartment Residential Districts, respectively. To the west is undeveloped land in the LAR 1, Limited Apartment Residential District. To the south, across East Broad Street, is undeveloped land in the CPD, Commercial Plan Development District. The site is located within the boundaries of the Far East Land Use Plan, which recommends mixed-use land uses for this location. Additionally, the plan includes complete adoption of the Columbus Citywide Planning Policies Design Guidelines. The plan also states that community commercial overlay standards should be used. TCP2 guidelines call for residential and commercial design to have high-quality building materials, parking located to the rear of the building, connections to public sidewalks and trails, and interconnected streets and sidewalks. Furthermore, the guidelines state that multi-unit residential developments should include entrances, stoops, porch, balconies, or other features to contribute to street activity and building articulation through the use of bays, balconies, and varying roof lines. Lastly, the guidelines state that new residential development should include open space and landscaping that includes trees. The site is located within the boundaries of the Far East Area Commission made recommendations for approval. The development text commits to a site plan and includes development standards addressing density, setbacks, traffic access, landscaping, building design, lighting, and graphics provisions. The revised text has updated language regarding the building height. The requested CPD, Commercial Plan Development District, will allow a senior housing development that is compatible with the density and development standards of adjacent residential development. The proposal is also consistent with the land use recommendations of the Far East Land Use Plan. City Department's recommendation is for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for Kelsey? Daniel, traffic issues?
All traffic issues have been resolved for this application.
All right, and Kathy?
No concerns from Parks.
Okay. Comments or questions from the commission to the applicant? Hi, David, what would you like to add to my presentation?
Dave Perry as agent for the applicant, HSL East Broad Street LLC. Dave Anderson, a partner with the LLC, is also on the video conference with me. This project is a 130-unit senior housing project, specifically age-restricted through HUD financing. The development is as depicted on the CPD plan, and I use the CPD to pick up the institutional district housing for the elderly. That's what the project is, and supported by the Far East Plan and the Far East Area Commission. Thank you.
Okay, is there any regarding this application? I don't see a show of hands, so I'm assuming there is not. Please call the roll.
John Ingerson,
Yes.
Kay Onwukwe,
Yes.
Marty Anderson,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Amanda Golden,
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved, and that brings us to the adjournment of tonight's adventure. Thank you, everyone. I'm presuming, Shannon, we can take our leave. Turn off our sets. Calling Shannon.
Oh, yes, you may leave.
Can we leave? Okay, the
may leave.
homeowner has stated that we may leave.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.